What do you think about the whole Brian Flores situation and him essentially might not ever be able to get a job again in the NFL, but is willing to speak up on behalf of himself and other minority, particularly black head coaches?
I'm ready for some receipts. I'm gonna be honest with you. He's talking about guys showing up an hour late, and the Broncos are talking about we were there, we have notes.
An hour late and drunk.
Right, not late and drunk. And they were like, we took a red eye to come out of your convenience. You know, there's a lot of allegations here. I'm interested to see the evidence. You know, he's made serious allegations, and not just about black coaches or minority coaches in general, but about specific situations. I wanted to see the information on how he's offered this money to lose, which I think is the bigger story here. I know you say, well, minority coach is a bigger story. Unfortunately, the NFL has shown us time and time again, they don't care. They don't care unless Congress or someone else steps in to make them do something. You know, like you can have fight racism all over the field, but the owners aren't buying it. The owners aren't paying for it. And they're the ones who really control the purse strings of the NFL. I think the allegations of the pay is going to be a bigger problem for the NFL.
I agree with that, because my thing is, if a black coach, an ethnic minority coach is hired, and the owner, the GM, they have no intentions of actually winning, they're not providing the talent, they're not supporting the coach. If in 2 years that coach goes 10-24 because he doesn't have the support of the franchise, he now has a scarlet letter, and he's not going to get another head coaching gig because he's now, he's not a leader of men. He can't control the locker room. All these things are stains on his resume, when in reality, nobody was supporting him from the jump. So I'm with you, Paul. I really do want to, these are all allegations at this point. So I really want to see the proof. I'm not saying I don't believe them, but let's get the facts. Let's get the proof. And if these things are true, I absolutely agree. The payment to lose is a huge story.
It's going to cost the guy his team. It's going to cost Ross that team in Miami.
Absolutely.
If he can prove that.
Oh, yeah.
Jay, what's your take on all this?
You know who I want to hear from is Jim Caldwell, another guy who went 7-9 in back-to-back years and got canned. The reason we're probably not is the reason I'm so shocked that Brian Flores spoke up. Both of these guys are looking for jobs. Flores, I thought he had the Houston job locked up. So it's surprising that he's now saying this stuff. Is that, some foreshadowing about what's about to happen with the Houston job? Maybe you didn't get it, but similar to Colin Kaepernick, I think we understand that if he digs his heels in on this issue, which there's no going back now with the allegations he made, he could be blackballed from the league too. But he's got people stepping up. He's got Marvin Lewis saying what he's saying. He's got coaches from different teams. Hugh Jackson talking about, I got money in my pocket from losing, right? So he's got some strength in numbers that Kaepernick didn't have. And when Cap had some backing, he didn't have the right backing. We know who he needed to speak up for him. With Brian Flores, he needs anybody. Rev hit on it in a way that I was about to say, these owners don't care. It's like we put fight racism on the back of the helmet. I let you paint it on my field, so I'm a good person. And we can't be surprised that they're not admitting to anything that is being alleged. Like, who's going to come out and be like, yeah, we didn't want the black guy? Nobody's going to say that.
And go ahead, Paul. If I may, to piggyback on what Jay said, you're talking about the Houston job. The owner down there referred to the Black Lives Matter movement in football as the inmates running the asylum a couple of years ago. So I, after this, would be stunned if Bob McNair is, you know what? Let's give this guy a 5-year, $30 million contract. Like, I just don't see it. And that's why it should be a bigger issue, but I don't think it's going to be a big issue. And I think the real issue they're going to have is our owners fixing games. We know teams end of the season, like the Eagles a couple of years ago, last season, not this current season, but last season, sat their players. They lost to the Washington football team, and the Giants missed the playoffs. My man. Right? The Commanders, right? and they didn't make the playoffs. So we know these guys sit to get younger guys out there. But the idea that you're paying someone when you yourself are involved with legalized gambling now, like Stephen Ross is, this looks like owners fixing the game, which is going to make the federal government come down very hard on these guys, in my opinion. This is the tip of the iceberg. Flores saying the racism stuff is the moral issue. The legal issue is fixing games. The politicians hate that because people hate that.
But it's tanking, and we know it happens. Like, do we think owners have nothing to do with tanking? They just send GMs to do the tanking and coaches. It's just about, like you said, proving it. Can you prove that owners legally or officially write off on tanking? If you can't, then it's like, well, we all know the notion, teams tank for Tua, tank for this guy, tank for Luck, but we can't prove it. And if he can prove this, it'll be the biggest story, I think, in NFL history by far. But I asked you guys this, right? We talked about, as we wrap up, we talked about how the coaches are not getting hired, right? Black coaches. How do you can't, like, how do you fix that? I think it's like, you can't force somebody to hire people just because they're Black, even though they're qualified. How do you know they're hiring them because they're qualified, or I'm not just checking off another box and then fire them in a year or two just to really say, oh, you can't blame me and my team?
So we have the Rooney Rule, and that's the NFL acknowledging that there is an issue, that Black coaches, ethnic minority coaches aren't getting the same opportunities that their white counterparts are, right? My issue with the Rooney Rule is that it's set at the end. So it's for head coaches and senior positions. I'll be the first to tell you, if I'm hiring somebody, I want the person with the experience. I don't care, race,
Black
religion,
or white. Exactly.
It doesn't matter to me. So I think one thing that could help is having the Rooney Rule effective across all coaching, hire, the whole thing. Because if a young Black young Black coach can get in on the lower levels, and he can build his name, he can build his resume, he can build his experience. Now he can go into these meetings, these interviews, and he has something that he can show and be like, now it's not as taboo as, we have to hire this guy or we have to interview this guy because he's, an ethnic minority. Now it's like, all right, this guy is worked up through our program. We know who he is as a person. We know how he works. Now, instead of having to kind of blindly fish for a Black head coach and ethnic minority coach, now you have somebody that you can promote from within. And I think that's the way that we kind of, I don't want to say level the playing fields, but it allows for a much
steps towards change.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such an amazing point, because it's like, you want to hire someone that you trust. The person you trust is someone you know.
Yes.
The someone you trust is someone who has experience. Those are not the Black candidates, because they're not getting hired at the lower level, right? So now I'm supposed to interview, playing devil's advocate, I'm supposed to interview this, minority candidate to run my team, to coach my team, because he's Black. It would be better for me to let him be a running backs coach, and then, like P said, he works up through the system. Right now, if we're talking realistically, look at the Black individuals who are getting looks and getting talked about. It's former players. It's Eric Bieniemy. It's Aaron Glenn. It's Byron Leftwich. That's how Tony Dungy got in the 70s. He was coaching the Steelers in his 20s. That's just the way that it's working. I'm not saying that should be the plan moving forward, but that has been the model that's gotten the foot in the door in the first place. Ron Rivera, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Had an appearance in the Super Bowl, was trusted because he was a player, then got in as a lower level coach and worked himself up. So I think that's the organic way that it's happened, but it's not happening enough because these guys aren't getting opportunities at that lower level.
I really like those points about getting them in there, because I feel like the Rooney Rule, while well-intentioned originally, still is just the NFL trying to cover their butts just enough, right? Yep. We have guys since this rule has been in effect, the Ted Cottrells, a lot of coordinators who feel like they're just going to interview because they're Black. look at the entire situation with the Giants. We all knew that many people thought that Brian Daboll was the coach from the beginning. They had their last interview with Leslie Frazier, and 3 hours later, they've already inked a contract.
Yeah.
Years, money, stipulations, bonuses, everything, and they announced their new coach. Now, is that because they're really good at getting contracts done, or because they already knew who they wanted and they just had the reality is like, let's just get these black guys in and out and just say we did what we're supposed to do. That's what's gone on way too many. They're checking the box and say, listen, we interviewed your guys and this is what we want. And that happened with the Raiders, happened with the Cowboys, and this is what happens. And there's no teeth to this. Like, what's going to happen to the Giants for doing something, for skirting the rule? What are they going to get? Docked a 4th-round pick and $100,000 to an owner who's a billionaire? Like, you have to put teeth into this to not just obey the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law, so that say, hey, you know what? You're going to lose a 1st-round pick, and you're going to lose $5 million off your salary cap this year. That would put some teeth into it and say, if you're not realistically getting out there and giving these guys an opportunity for your job so that the Mike Tomlins of the world can get those jobs like he did, then enforce. If there's no enforcement, it doesn't matter what the rules are.
Listen, none of this is even happening, right? Especially with Flores, if Bill Belichick knew how to mind his business. Bill like, bro, you just get on the phone.
Texting.
Why is this old man texting? Get on the phone, Bill.
Maybe he did it on purpose.
Really?
Get back in the league? To get back in the league?
That would be something, bro. But to throw the Giants under the bus, his beloved franchise, that's messy.
I'm just saying, Bill Belichick, we tout him as somebody who knows all the rules. He's meticulous. He crosses every T and dots every I. He texted the wrong person, but like, I'm just saying.
Yo, the funniest part, as we sign off right now, the funniest part of that entire text sequence was how when he sent the last text, like he signed off like BB, as if like, all right, you're never gonna hear from me again. So like sincerely, your good buddy from the time you coached for me. Like, Bill, what are you doing, bro?